You know what? I miss the beach. So since I already looked at one Jaws film, why not do the rest for this month? So let's start by talking about Jaws 2. With the critical and financial success of the first movie, Universal was naturally interested in capitalizing on its popularity. A segment dedicated to Jaws would be featured in studio tours in Universal Studios, while later having attractions of its own in Florida and Japan. Although presently, only the one in Japan is in operation. A sequel was also in discussion, but the studio would need to make one without Steven Spielberg. I've alluded to the production challenges of the first movie in the other review, and similar issues were the reason why another director, John D. Hancock, left this project midway.
The shark is not working. The shark is not working.
In the end, directorship went over to Janet Swark, and since they didn't get Peter Benchley back, they instead had Howard Sackler and Carl Gottlieb on the screenplay. There's some other things I want to mention, but that requires getting into open water once more. So without further ado, here's Jaws 2. So this time we open on more John Williams music. It's like an expansion on what was done for the first movie to make it more complex, and I like it. In any case, a couple of divers discover the remains of the Orca from the previous movie, but it isn't before long when a familiar tune plays. That felt a little jarring, and the flashing camera didn't help much. So we're once again back on Amity Island, and we even see Roy Scheider return as Martin Brody. Roy is only here because he was locked into a multi-film contract with Universal. Staying on for Jaws 2 is his way out of that arrangement, even if he ended up butting heads with new directorship if outside testimony is any indication. In any case, Brody is attending the opening ceremony for a new Holiday Inn hotel, and it seems like the town re-elected Larry, despite the crappy job he did last time. Maybe the resort town's electoral college got him back in? Besides, the shark died at the end of the first movie, so there's no way he can have a repeat incident. I mean, they have new homes and a fundraiser that should totally negate the previous incident. We get some characters we'll be seeing more of later, like Michael Brody, now played by Mark Gruner, his friend Brooke, played by Gigi Borgen, and Larry Jr., played by David Elliott. It's a slow burn so far with the dance, even with the hint of the shark being near. So whatever tension we could have is lost in the morning when we start seeing the kids some more.
Shut! Never been an anchor before? Come on! Whoa.
Hey, Mike. Hi.
Hi.
Going out right away?
No.
Good. I want you to meet my cousin.
Look, don't worry. I'll meet her.
Okay, Tom, see you later. Same time Thursday.
Brock! Brock! Jackie! Hi!
I mean, they're okay. Some of them come off the wrong foot, but nothing too bad. Right now, they're just living the good life, and even the music reflects this. It's at around this moment that the lost camera comes into Brody's possession. He looks into its contents while we jump back to the teens having some fun on the water. But of course, the music starts becoming dramatic, and the underwater shots are not helping. Ooh, swing and a miss. Okay, how about a dine and dash meal instead? Seeing that this shark can go as fast as this boat, I wonder how she'll get caught. Well, that was kinda lame. Though maybe this will make up for it. Okay, that doesn't count. She blew herself up that time. Here's where we see the problems in making a Jaws sequel. As Spielberg said before, the first movie was the definitive shark movie. Virtually everything done with that movie was pitch perfect, and it's impossible to surprise the audience the second time around. We already know that the next shark will be just as big, so there's not much need to hide him that much. Jaws 2 tries to set itself apart by finding more ways for people to die from this new foe, and that's partially why it feels unnecessary. Even if the set pieces can be louder, it doesn't stick with you as well. Otherwise, we have somewhat of a repeat of the first movie. That'll be made more clear later, but for now, Brody is sent to investigate this new case. And right away, he seems to have a sneaking suspicion on what might have done this. He sends one of his guys out to find the bodies, and they only find a power line. Meanwhile, Eddie and Tina find a carcass of an actual orca. Now, one of the films that was inspired by the first Jaws film was called Orca from 1977. In that, the killer whale of the title kills a great white shark, which could have been like a jab regarding their killer animals. So of course, this is likely their response. Brody gets a look at the thing, and given the bite marks, he starts coming to the conclusion that a shark did this.
I have had some experience with sharks.
What have you?
Yeah, and I think a great white might have done this.
Carcharodon calcareus?
Right.
What makes you think there might be one in these waters?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the fact we had at least 2 sharks last time? What's to say there aren't others like this one? But seriously, did no one take any testimony from these guys? And they seem too eager to dismiss the possibility of another shark attack. Brody tells his son not to go boating anymore. This won't lead to anything later, right? He then tells Larry what he thinks, only to be disregarded yet again.
Larry, for Christ's sakes, I not only have this attack, but I've got 2 water skiers who have
A tragedy, but a boating accident. No fin, no sharks, nothing but a boating accident.
But they're both still missing.
We have a lot of deaths in these waters that never turn up. Are they all shark victims?
How did this guy win re-election? If past experience has taught you anything, it's better to be safe than sorry. I should also mention that Brody, while still having a good performance, really pushes the paranoia factor more than ever. He's angrier, he yells a lot, and he's very frustrated with the incompetent folks around him. It's a reasonable reaction, even if he goes overboard every once in a while, as we'll see later. Anyway, time for shots of tourists just beaching it up. Like before, it makes you wish you were out on an actual beach because those trips can be fun. That said, the scene goes on for a bit too long. At least John Williams' score salvages it. Not a bad effort for a film that went through delays and, well, he had to do the score before they were done. Anyway, Larry and Len are trying to give positive PR, while Brody is back on Shark Watch. Normally, I'd be scolding these two for picking on him, but in this case, our hero is really off his game today. He sees a school of bluefish, believes it's the shark, and starts calling for everyone to get out. Then he starts firing his gun at open water despite the presence of stragglers in his line of fire. Like, jeez, I know Bruce was a major threat, but this seems rather unreasonable. And no, the shark doesn't show up shortly after to confirm his suspicions. Instead, the photos from that camera show the eye of the shark? Brody tries the best he could to warn the clueless council on the odds of another shark attack. But because of his behavior earlier, they decide to vote him out as police chief. Well, even though he isn't chief anymore, he sure knows how to give a toast to his successor.
Okay, we'll do it together. Toast to the new chief. Hail to the chief. Dum dum da dum dum da dum da dum da dum dum.
Don't worry about it, Brody. We know the truth. Meanwhile, Larry Jr. is offering to take everyone out on his boat tomorrow to drink beer. Mike intends to go, despite his father's wishes. But he also needs to bring along his younger brother Sean, who's threatening to tell on him. Oh, and a couple of nerds that seem interested in Brooke get to go too. Guess persistence pays off. So after some shots of them sailing off casually, set to more John Williams music that deserves a better film than this, we get a surprise shark attack! And oh, look! It's been scarred! Now it's even scarier! Wait, no, that just seems rather silly. Somehow, no one gets eaten yet. Because again, this Bruce is looking for younger flesh. First up on the hit list is the only active couple of the film, Eddie and Tina.
And what about sailing?
What about it? Look, don't you worry. We're gonna make it.
Wanna bet?
Eddie, swim! Swim fast! It's a shark, Eddie! Swim!
Meanwhile, Brody is driving through town with his wife. He broods about his midlife crisis until some nearby police sirens catch his attention. Turns out they are responding to the attacked scuba divers, and he learns that his kids are on a boat that's headed toward the lighthouse.
Hey, let's go past the lighthouse.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're going past it now. Teens will be teens, I suppose. At least Brody and Ellen find Tina, so she'll make it. But now that they know of the shark problem, they leave her behind so that Brody can look for his kids. One of the nerds breaks their boat, and Bruce 2, as his model would be called, shows up as if on cue. Panic ensues as it causes one of them to tip over and the others to crash. Yet surprisingly, no one dies from this despite some close calls. Compared to the third act of the previous movie, where it was a cat and mouse game between 3 humans and a giant shark, this doesn't have the same satisfaction. This movie really focuses more on the teens, which is too bad since they aren't as interesting. They got themselves into this mess despite all the warning signs, and now they need to wait for someone to save their asses. Like this guy, who comes in to tow the teens to a nearby island via helicopter. Well, that's unfortunate, and Bruce 2 is still hungry, since he tries going for Sean and Marge. The latter saving the former is an alright moment, but it could have been more gut-wrenching if the characters were better written. Anyway, as they drift toward Cable Junction, Brody finds one of the boat's mic is on, and they have the quickest apology session ever.
They're in the current, drifting towards Cable Junction.
All right. You 3 get to the lighthouse and stay there, you hear me? Stay there.
I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know.
It's all right, forget it now. Just get to the lighthouse.
Yeah, even though it was looking like Mike had his own character arc, it's actually his friends we have to care about more. Anyway, the kids get stuck when their sail catches on the rocks. This gets everyone shouting like madmen.
That thing, I know it. It's gonna kill us. It's gonna kill us now. I know
Jackie,
it.
shut up!
No, it's gonna
Jackie,
kill us.
shut up!
It's gonna kill us.
Shut
Mary,
up!
no, leave her alone.
Then you take care of her! You take care of
Look,
her!
Larry, she's hysterical. Beating her head in is not...
Sit down!
Not
Damn it, Larry, she's crazy! Can't you
Be
see that?
quiet.
No place for her to freak out! Come on, Larry! Come on!
Can the shark please eat someone now? Brody shows up, but then he crashes his boat as the shark is coming. Well, great, now you're all stuck. And now he wants them to get onto this island? It's basically a barge covered with plastic and fiberglass. Anyway, it's time to kill off another teen. Or not. Guess we can't let any more people die as long as Brody is on screen. And since the shark responds to sound vibrations, Brody decides to use the power lines that he accidentally pulled up to draw the shark to him. The end result is a decent kill moment. Anyone for deep fry? Good job, Brody, but now Amity Island is without power for a while. And so our story ends with Brody paddling back to the rest of the teens with his son. We can only assume that they get rescued off screen. The end. So, if I didn't make it obvious enough, this movie is not on par with the first. And if you saw my review of an extremely goofy movie, then the reasons why will sound similar. Jaws 2 really tries to recapture the same magic that made the first movie so memorable, but in doing so, it only reveals itself to be a pale shadow of its more iconic predecessor. Brody's character arc is very disappointing. The teenage characters aren't good replacements for him, and the shark behaves less like a pissed off giant animal and more like a serial killer. The film is at least technically competent by the standards of 1978, but it lacks any real suspense that the first movie had, especially when characters are yelling and screaming a lot. It's a shame too, since Jaws 2 does have some good moments of quiet downtime when it decides to have them. And John Williams did all he could, bless his heart, but even he can't save this film. Perhaps if they lessened the kill count, wrote Brody's midlife crisis arc better, and gave us better teen characters, maybe this movie would have been a decent follow-up. But why even think about how this movie could be better when we already know of another film that is superior in every way? And yet, as much as I crap on Jaws 2, the next film will serve as its vindication. Stay tuned.